What makes a good story? What's the difference between having a good story and having a good story with good storytelling? Well, it's a good question, one with a rather simple answer. Yeah, I know, for a question that's seemingly been discussed ad infinitum since the dawn of humanity, I genuinely believe there is a rather straightforward, easily understandable solution to that question. Let me just move my fan on over here, and we can get right on into it. You know, some may like the answer, and some may just be off-put by it, not being able to truly comprehend the answer, or thinking it was right in front of them the entire time, but the answer didn't really digest. But I believe, when it comes to this very subjective discussion, it is one of the only, if not the only, objective reality in regards to this whole discussion. And the answer is simply that storytelling is highly subjective, drawing from the consumer's own life experiences or lack thereof to convey certain thoughts and emotions that may resonate stronger with one person than the other. Sure, there are rough guidelines one can follow to improve the writing, or to convey thoughts in a more condensed format, but again, whether or not those revisions would actually amount to a more compelling narrative depends on the end user. Some may prefer shorter, more compact stories, while others prefer the grandeur of it all, and the flowery language, using many words to convey simple things. One person may like a scene to be painted in for them, while the other prefers to paint it within the confines of the mind, and to leave a lot of details blank for a personal interpretation, while the other may prefer for those details to be filled in. It just simply depends on the preferences of the individual consumer at the end of the day. And I like to think I have a rather eclectic taste in video games. If you watch my top 10 games of all time series, you could probably guess that. I've liked different genres of games at different points in my life. I grew up on FPS games like Call of Duty and Halo, and PlayStation platformers like Spyro the Dragon and Sly Cooper. And then you have a mix of platformers with action games like Ratchet and Clank, or that PS2 Spyro series we don't talk about, despite the fact I kinda like that game. And MMOs came into the scene at some point as well, eventually moving into more RPGs and JRPGs for me later on in life. So the stories that have meant the most to me have changed over the course of my life, but there's a select few that have withstood the test of time, that remain at the top of my proverbial mountain, for my taste that have not budged or have been recently added. And as a thank you to everyone and each and every single one of you for joining me on this wild YouTube adventure, and for 1,000 YouTube's channel subscribers, I thought, why not start a new top 10 series? Whereas last time I talked about my favorite overall games, what about my favorite stories? Those video game narratives that have struck the most chords with me. And in this series, each entry could be a series, or each entry could be, an individual video game in a larger series, or just a standalone game. Heck, there could even be just individual sections of a game. But I really want to break down storytelling, down to its base components, and examine them, and really hone in on what I like, and see if there's a pattern there, and whether or not there's a genre that I just end up preferring at the end of the day, or if the storytelling components that I resonate the most with are genre dependent, or just an innate trait any and all video games can utilize. But for today's video, I want to revisit that first sentence of this video. What makes a good story? Before we start the series proper, let's talk about stories in video games, and what exactly I'm talking about when I say a story resonated with me the most, or what I'm looking for, at least what I think I'm looking for. I think a good story is a great blend between 5 key characteristics. You could argue 7, but I combine 4 of them into 2. 1 is characters and their development. 2 is the world and their world building. 3 is audio design. 4 is cinematography, and 5 is the dialogue. I don't think there's any one guide to follow for those 5 things, but it depends on the story and the type of story that is trying to be conveyed. A particular video game may need no spoken word, just gestures or grandiose set pieces from which emotion and drive can be derived for the player. Take Journey as an excellent example of that. A game with no actual dialogue, just musical notes to be played, an orchestral soundtrack, and beautiful iconic set pieces, juxtaposed with very simplistic adventure-based platforming and gameplay. I love that game so much that I put it in my top 10 games of all time, and whether or not it is to be found in my top 10 stories remains to be seen, but it's an excellent example of how storytelling really doesn't have a blueprint, just general guiding principles to draw players or people in who like that style and method of story and storytelling. And then you contrast that to something like, say, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3, that rely far more on spoken dialogue, characters, and cinematic experiences. And they're just two polar opposite experiences at the end of the day. However, each excel at conveying thoughts and emotions just in their own way. And whether or not an individual will gravitate towards one or the other really depends upon the individual's preferences and life experiences that may determine which game or series resonates stronger with that player. Personally, Xenoblade is more up my alley in terms of the story that is being told there. While I really appreciate and love what Journey does, I wouldn't put it on par with Xenoblade in terms of which game have most resonated with me, because I tend to prefer that more well-defined structure, to have a cast of characters and stuff like that. We'll get back, and we'll draw that out in a little bit. Hell, you can take something like world building and the whole world-driven story versus character-driven story. I know before I said I have a wide range of preferences, but on this issue I tend to fall rather firmly on the side of character-driven stories. To me, a lot of the time, characters tell the story and can make the world compelling, and that's just simply what resonates with me the most. Sure, a cool world is all well and good, but if the characters themselves that are conveying those thoughts and emotions aren't engaging or well written enough to keep my attention, and get me to care about the theme and message and overall development, that world will probably end up feeling empty to me. And I was about to say, let's talk about the opposite, where a game has a cast of characters that I find great and compelling, but a boring world, and I honestly can't think of one. Mainly because of what I just said, I care about the characters. So if I do care about those characters, chances are I'll care about the world itself. No matter how bland or generic it may seem on the surface, those characters will give it personality to me, because I'll define that world through its characters. Hell, take Persona 5 for instance. The game is literally just set in Tokyo. Okay, well, ignoring the whole Mind Palace aspect of it and mementos. But the reason I care about the world isn't because it's just Tokyo, it's because Persona 5 has so much style to it, and the characters are so interesting and fleshed out that I care about the world of Persona 5. Now, it's no secret that Xenoblade is my favorite series of all time, so it's obviously going to be high on my list. Is that really a spoiler, though? But look at Xenoblade, and this applies to any Xenoblade, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or X. The series has some of the most unique and captivating worlds in all of gaming. But on top of that, it has some of my favorite cast of characters of any game ever, with some of my favorite development. It's able to blend a unique world with great characters that make the world more engaging. So at the end of it all, if I had to pick between a world-driven story or a character-driven story, I'll pick a character-driven story. But the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the highest of the highs, what will probably occupy my top 10 list, will be those games that are able to do both. That are able to tell a story with a phenomenal and unique world alongside a great cast of characters, on top of an engaging message and theme. And honestly, you go back in the video when I talk about those 5 key characteristics, and theme and message could be number 6 if you wanted to. Where a story is trying to tell you something important. Maybe something nuanced, maybe something you already knew but need a little bit of a reminder on. Or something you just never really thought about or gave much thought to in the first place. And the games are probably going to be my highest of highs. Will not only blend a great world with a great cast of characters, but also have a compelling message or theme that really resonated with me. So with all that said, next time, we start the top 10 list with number 10. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And hit the bell icon to be notified for when I upload in the future. And leave a comment down below with a video game or story that resonated with you more so than any other. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your perspective. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. Go play some video games, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.